Hello out there, all you epiphings and ephemera. Welcome to Umbral Free Radio. I'm your host, Priestess Lakeney. It's been a heavy couple of weeks for those of us in the know. Beltane was punctuated by some decidedly disturbing news, and the Sept of the Far Down is now Sept at war. All this and more tonight on Umbral Free Radio. For our first spotlight, I thought I'd try something different this week. A friend of mine visited from the Golden Obelisk, my buddy John. John's a Fianna kinfolk and a psychic out of the armorer's camp. It's people like John that make up the skeleton of the nation to the Garu's muscle. He forges weapons and armor, cleans up messes with the Veil, and even makes lunch. Seriously. He's the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back in the rain. But don't think he's just this guy who sits around and supports people and never goes out and puts himself on the line. No, the guy's seen some shit on his own. He's full of useful information and good advice. I thought it might be helpful to put a little perspective on the guy since he came down and people didn't really have the chance to get to know him. Now, the real reason I wanted to bring this up is simple. There were some extremely unkind things said at the expense of my friend here. Things that I feel are completely unfair, and I wanted to address them here and now. Our alpha, Frost, called John a coward for not wanting to go on a dangerous mission with a group of complete strangers. I should have said something in that moment, but I didn't, so I'm saying it now. John is one of the bravest people I know. He's gone toe-to-toe with vampires and has traveled into their lair to help disrupt a ritual during the raid on the Sedite Temple at Equinox. And he's still only human. Sometimes I think Garu, and maybe even other shifters, tend to forget how much more vulnerable we are as normal humans. You take for granted all the mundane ways we pull not only our own weight, but the day-to-day weight for our cousins who can't because of the curse of rage. John does that every day without complaining, and he has the guts to say something is too dangerous, when even I was afraid to admit that. I'm going to quote Albus Dumbledore, who said, "There are all kinds of courage, and it takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends." John has both of those kinds of bravery, and I'm woman enough to admit that I could learn a thing or two about standing up to my friends from John. Our second spotlight is going to be a little shorter. This is our newest Clyath, Vision's Flight. She just underwent her rite of passage this last gathering, and let me tell you, she brings new meaning to the word enthusiasm. Any chance she gets to be involved in something that will prove new and exciting experience, she's right there. To the point where she managed to have to rage on and lost the wolf as a cub. She got better, thanks to Cora. What's more, she's not just curious, but brave too. She's not been afraid to ask to be allowed to go on things that are much above her pay grade. And when she's on those adventures, she doesn't bitch or moan about how hard they are. Rather, she focuses on finding solutions for problems that she can solve. Welcome to the team, Vision's Flight. I wish you the luck of a protagonist and the wits of Odysseus. And now for some current events. As I mentioned before, there was some crazy shit that went down at the Beltane Festival. The first night brought with it the death of a kinfolk, Balthazar, who died to bring forth a prophecy. And by the way, it was amazing how many Garu I spoke to who couldn't tell me the kinfolk's name. Amazing and highly offensive, but I digress. It turns out some centuries ago, some psychic kinfolk ended up stranded away from their Garu relatives. They tried to summon a spirit to send for help, but instead what came was the Eater of Dreams. They began to worship it, and they formulated a way to ensure that their offspring would come forth assured of also being psychic kinfolk. Eventually, to feed their god, they formed a wall of flesh and trapped the elders of their people within the wall. The visitors to Beltane had to seek out objects of power connected to the beings trapped within the flesh wall who were loyal to the Eater of Dreams. With them banished, the remaining psychics opened a portal to the spirit. The combatants there entered the portal and did battle with it. It collapsed when it was defeated, freeing the remaining kinfolk from its influence. In local news, Frost led a group of intrepid explorers into the legendary realm in order to redeem a black spiral dancer. Now, I don't have a good answer as to the main questions you may have, such as why we didn't go to Erebus instead, which would have been the typical place to go to redeem someone corrupted by the worm. I simply don't know the answer to why that wasn't the case. What I do know is the team consisted of Frost, Last Rites, a Silent Strider Galliard who recently arrived at the Sept, The cub, then known as Looking Glass, was now the Clyath Vision's Flight, Seething Rage, and yours truly. We formed into a pack temporarily and ventured into the anchorhead for the legendary realm. We came up on a bridge guarded by a pair of guards. They were kind enough to provide me with a toga since I came across the gauntlet naked, but wouldn't allow us to cross without payment. Seething Rage found payment for the spirits, but they insisted our charge be chained. We progressed onward toward Mount Olympus, but as soon as we were out of sight of the guards, the former dancer elected to shed her chains. I pointed out that the Olympians would likely object if she arrived in their presence without them, so I was tasked with carrying them until we reached our destination. The mountain itself was something of an exhausting ordeal, but we reached the top and found ourselves in the city of the Olympian gods. We approached the Pantheon and returned the former dancer to her chains, and soon we came before Zeus. Negotiations with Zeus started out rough. It seemed as if Frost expected to be given access to the Fountain of Purity without payment. He tried to convince Zeus that he should be given it, but Zeus was quite insistent he would not get something for nothing. For a moment all hope seemed lost, for none had anything upon them with which we could pay the spirit. It was then I used my knowledge of Zeus and his desires. I used my body language to attempt to seduce him, but no words were spoken. Still, Zeus's demeanor in the negotiations changed abruptly. He would allow the dancer access to the Fountain of Purity, and would permit us to wait at the foot of the mountain until she had been purified. It was only as we attempted to leave that his acceptance of my suggested payment became clear to the rest of the group, as I was unable to leave. I assured my compatriots not once but thrice that I consented to this arrangement. Still, Seething Rage tried to take my place in Zeus's bed. Instead, he offered that she might join us, and she did. For a week we took turns sharing his bed, and on that last night the dancer emerged from the fountain. But all was not well. Something inside the former dancer had been broken by the process of her purification. She tried to kill herself immediately, and once we had returned to the material world, she tried it again. In the end, she did not meet her fate at her own hands, but at those of her former hive mates. She was set upon just off the land of the Bon and abducted. In her place, they left only her hide and some organs. For Frost, this was the last straw. She had been his savior and solace in the time he was captured in the hive. He called the entire sept to arms so that they might do battle with the hive in 2 weeks' time, and now we are a sept at war. Tonight I leave you on the theme of family. Love 'em or hate 'em, family is at the core of what we are. The tribes are, at their center, families, be it by blood or adoption. But family isn't just about relations, and people you consider family may not be the same tribe or blood or anything else. When it gets down to it, family is about loyalty and trust and bonds that run so deep they're part of who you are at your core. Take care of your family, dear listeners, and they'll take care of you. I've been Priestess Lakeney with Umbral Free Radio, signing out.